My daughter was hysterically crying, like beyond.
Before you flew?
Yeah, before the day I left. And the day I left, I was like,
you'd flown a lot in the past.
Yeah, I mean, it comes with the territory, with what I do. Sometimes we'd fly twice a day.
Breaking news just rocked the entire music industry as sources reveal what really happened in that closed-door meeting with Travis Barker. Multiple studio executives who were present are suggesting that what Travis showed them wasn't just about recent drama, it was evidence that's making. Everyone questioned everything they thought they knew about certain industry relationships. Think about this. Why did 3 major recording studios suddenly cancel sessions last week? And why did several high-profile producers, including ones who've worked with Bhad Bhabie for years, suddenly clear their schedules? According to industry insiders, what Travis presented in that meeting was so compelling that nobody wanted to risk their reputation by being on the wrong side. What's really interesting is how certain artists who used to be in both camps are now quietly unfollowing specific people on social media.
Barrett's esophagus, and you remember when we first talked about that?
Yeah, it was terrible. I just felt like there was a lump in my throat, and to the point where I'd try to look in the mirror, like stick my finger down my throat going, what is this lump? And I just had a crazy infection where I just couldn't swallow. It felt like my throat was closing up.
Remember when DJ Carnage was supposed to work with both artists? Well, sources close to his team are suggesting his sudden scheduling conflict might have more to do with what Travis revealed in that meeting. The music world literally stopped when Travis stepped into this drama. We're not just talking about a father defending his daughter anymore. This is about industry relationships, professional reputations, and how one friendship breakdown could affect multiple careers. Nobody expected Travis to get involved at this level. But now that he has, other major industry players are being forced to choose sides. The ripple effects of his statement are already causing chaos in recording studios across LA. Let's break down exactly what happened when Travis Barker decided to address this situation.
You know, she didn't want you to fly that day.
Didn't want me to fly that day. Hysterically kept crying, saying the roof's gonna come off. And I was like, what happened? Was there like an earthquake this morning? Did she see like something shake? Like what triggered this? And she just kept screaming it and crying it.
Because his approach wasn't just about defending Alabama, it was a calculated industry power move that nobody saw coming. First off, Travis didn't just release a statement or post on social media. He called a private meeting with several major music executives, producers, and studio owners. According to sources who were in that room, Travis laid out evidence that completely changes the narrative of how this friendship fell apart. What's really interesting is how he handled the musical aspect of this situation.
Make sure the music's right, make sure they're making the right decisions, make sure they're smart with their money, make sure they have a family of people around them that are gonna help them and take them on tour. Answer the phone at 3 in the morning when whatever is happening.
As one of the most respected producers in the industry, when Travis tells studios not to work with someone, it carries serious weight. He's not just a drummer anymore. He's a kingmaker in the music business. The way he presented his case was particularly strategic. Instead of making emotional arguments about his daughter, he focused on professional conduct and industry standards. He brought up specific instances, dates, and witnesses that paint a very different picture of what's been happening behind the scenes.
The landing gear popped. It sounded like gunshots. It sounded like someone was shooting a gun next to my head. And then the plane just spiraled out of control. It would come down.
But here's what's really fascinating. Several other major artists who've worked with both Bhad Bhabie and Alabama were present at this meeting. Their reactions to Travis's evidence tells us everything we need to know about how serious this situation has become. Let's talk about how Travis's involvement has completely shifted the power dynamics in the music industry. Because when someone with his level of influence takes a stand, it creates waves that affect everyone in the business. Multiple recording studios have already started canceling previously booked sessions. We're talking about major facilities in LA, Atlanta, and Miami suddenly having technical difficulties or scheduling conflicts.
Big trigger for like all of the acid and I didn't even really know I had it. I had no idea.
That's industry code for we don't want to get involved in this situation. What's particularly telling is how different producers are responding. People who've worked with both artists are now having to make tough decisions about future collaborations. When you've got Travis Barker on one side of an issue, crossing him could mean losing access to some of the biggest names in music. The way record labels are handling this is fascinating too.
And then I talked to Johnny. He's like, yeah, I don't think it's gonna happen. And I was just getting ready to text her, and then I saw the dots pop up, and she was getting ready to text me. I was about to say like, hey, like, stoked, we like tried our hardest, whatever, like I wish you nothing but luck, and I'm excited about the music we made.
Several executives who were planning projects with both artists are now quietly restructuring their release schedules. Nobody wants to be caught in the crossfire of this situation, especially with Travis wielding his industry influence. Even radio stations are being affected. Program directors are getting calls from higher up about playlist decisions. That's the kind of behind-the-scenes pressure that can make or break an artist's career. When your music stops getting airplay, it doesn't matter how many streams you have. But here's what's really interesting. Some younger producers and artists are actually standing up to this pressure.
For me, it was my biggest fear already, and it was coming true.
You didn't like flying?
I hated flying. I had a dream when I was 19 I was going to die in a plane crash. Like, I got drunk, and I didn't really drink, and I told my manager that. And he was like, what are you talking about? And
they're risking their own careers to speak out about how this kind of industry power play affects emerging artists. Let's dive into something that's making everyone in the industry nervous: the potential legal ramifications of this situation. Because Travis Barker didn't just make statements, he brought lawyers into the mix. According to industry insiders, Travis's legal team has been gathering evidence for months. They're not just looking at recent events. They're examining every interaction, every studio session, every business dealing that happened during the friendship between Alabama and Bhad Bhabie. What's really fascinating is how they're approaching the music rights situation. The legal team is questioning who actually owns certain melodies, lyrics, and production elements from sessions where both artists were present. That's the kind of dispute that can tie up music releases for years. The way they're handling social media evidence is particularly interesting. Every post, every comment, every direct message is being documented and analyzed. In the digital age, these electronic footprints can make or break a legal case. The cease and desist letters have already started flying. Multiple studios, producers, and even some social media influencers have received formal notices about discussing certain aspects of this situation.
Yeah, I stopped, obviously, smoking. He told me that. I literally had a joint in hand, and he goes, Travis, this is your warning shot. Stop smoking now. And I was like right now? And he's like right now.
That's not just about controlling the narrative. It's about building a potential legal case. But here's what's really concerning for everyone involved. Travis's team is looking into potential contract interference claims. They're suggesting that certain actions may have deliberately interfered with Alabama's business relationships. In the music industry, that's the kind of accusation that can end careers. Let's talk about something that's causing major waves in the recording industry: the battle over studio access. Because Travis Barker's influence extends far beyond just his own facilities, and what's happening now is unprecedented. Multiple top-tier recording studios in Los Angeles have suddenly become fully booked when certain artists try to schedule time. We're not just talking about small studios either. These are major facilities where platinum records are made, the kind of places where studio time usually costs thousands per hour. What's particularly interesting is how different engineers and producers are handling the situation. Some are quietly turning down work to avoid getting involved, while others are risking their relationships with Travis to stand by their principles.
And then it was like not looking like it was going to go through, and it was like all this, it was messy.
That's the kind of decision that can define someone's career in this industry. The way studio owners are navigating this is fascinating too. Many are caught between their long-standing relationships with Travis and their desire to run neutral businesses. Some have tried to create separate session times or use different buildings, but that's becoming increasingly difficult to manage. But here's what's really telling: several up-and-coming producers who own smaller studios are seeing this as an opportunity. They're opening their doors to artists who might be getting shut out of bigger facilities. That's creating this interesting underground movement in the recording industry. The equipment rental companies are even getting involved now. Certain high-end gear that's essential for professional recording has become mysteriously unavailable for some projects.
Would love, the idea of like putting you on DTA. I feel like it's a perfect fit. And then she's like, wait, hold on. And then, like the next day, she hit me and she's like, I think I want to stir shit up. I'm gonna kill this record deal. I would rather sign with you.
In an industry where specific equipment can make or break a record's sound, that's a serious issue. Let's break down how both sides are handling this situation on social media, because the digital battlefield has become just as important as the studio wars. Travis's team is executing a masterclass in controlled narrative management. First off, notice how Travis hasn't made any direct statements on his main social media accounts. Instead, he's letting industry figures and respected musicians speak on his behalf. That's not just about staying above the drama, it's about maintaining his professional reputation while still getting his message across. What's really fascinating is how they're controlling Alabama's social media presence during all this. Her posts have become notably more professional, more measured, and clearly vetted by a PR team. Gone are the emotional responses and direct call-outs. Everything now feels calculated and strategic. The way they're handling fan responses is particularly clever. Instead of trying to silence supporters, they're carefully amplifying certain comments and perspectives that support their side of the story. It's like they're conducting an orchestra of public opinion without ever having to play an instrument themselves. But here's what's really interesting. They're using music industry blogs and news sites to their advantage. Certain stories are getting exclusive access to sources close to the situation, while others are being completely frozen out. That's how you control the narrative without seeming to be directly involved. Even the timing of certain posts and announcements shows careful planning. They're releasing information at specific times to either overshadow other news or maximize impact. In the digital age, timing isn't just about when you say something, it's about when you want people to hear it. Let's talk about how this situation is affecting everyone's careers. Because Travis's involvement hasn't just impacted the main players, it's creating ripple effects throughout the entire industry. Session musicians are finding themselves in particularly tough spots. These are professionals who typically work with multiple artists, but now they're being forced to choose sides. Some have even had long-standing gigs canceled because they worked with the wrong artist. What's really telling is how music video directors and choreographers are responding. Many are quietly turning down projects to avoid getting caught in the crossfire. When you've got Travis Barker on one side of an issue, working with the other side could mean losing access to dozens of major artists. The impact on upcoming festivals and events is particularly concerning. Booking agents are having to completely restructure performance schedules to keep certain artists separated. Some events are even facing pressure to drop acts entirely to avoid potential conflicts. But here's what's fascinating: some smaller industry players are seeing this as an opportunity. Independent studios, lesser-known producers, and emerging talent managers are stepping up to fill the gaps created by this situation. They're taking risks that could either make or break their careers. The way different publicity teams are handling this shows how serious it's become. Some PR firms are actually dropping clients to maintain their relationships with Travis and his connections. In an industry built on relationships, these kinds of decisions tell you everything about where the power lies. Let's dive into how this situation is affecting business deals and brand partnerships, because Travis's influence extends far beyond just the music industry. His connections in fashion, entertainment, and business are creating unexpected consequences. Major brands that were planning collaborations with various artists are now quietly backing away. We're talking about fashion lines, makeup collections, and endorsement deals suddenly being put on hold. That's corporate speak for "we don't want to get involved in this drama." What's particularly interesting is how this is affecting streaming platforms. Certain playlists that would typically feature both artists are being restructured. Playlist curators, who usually make decisions based purely on numbers and trends, are now having to consider industry politics in their choices. The impact on merchandise deals is fascinating too. Several major retailers who carry multiple artists' product lines are having to navigate some tricky waters. Some are even creating separate release schedules to avoid any appearance of taking sides. But here's what's really telling: investment groups and venture capitalists who typically fund music industry projects are becoming hesitant. When someone with Travis's influence suggests there might be issues with certain artists or projects, it makes potential investors nervous. The way different management companies are handling their rosters shows how deep this goes. Some are actually restructuring their entire client list to avoid any potential conflicts. When management companies start dropping profitable clients to maintain relationships with Travis's camp, you know the situation is serious. Let's talk about what this whole situation means for the future of the music industry. Because Travis Barker's involvement isn't just affecting current projects, it's changing how people think about power dynamics in entertainment. Young artists watching this unfold are learning some hard lessons about industry politics. They're seeing firsthand how one powerful figure can influence entire careers, how friendships can turn into business liabilities, and how quickly alliances can shift when someone with real influence gets involved. What's really fascinating is how this might change how artists approach collaborations and friendships in the future. The days of casual studio sessions and informal collaborations might be over. Everything will need to be documented, contracted, and legally protected from the start. The way different record labels are adjusting their policies tells us something important too. Many are now creating strict guidelines about artist interactions, social media conduct, and studio session protocols. They're trying to prevent situations like this from affecting their business in the future. But here's what's really interesting. Some industry veterans are suggesting this might actually lead to positive changes. They're saying this situation could force the industry to become more professional, more structured, and more protective of both established and emerging artists. The impact on music education programs and industry workshops is particularly telling. Schools and mentorship programs are already updating their curriculum to include lessons about industry politics, professional boundaries, and the importance of legal protection in creative collaborations. Listen, we need to wrap this up by talking about what Travis Barker's involvement in this situation really means for everyone in the music industry. Because this isn't just about two artists having issues anymore. It's about how power, influence, and relationships really work in entertainment. Think about everything we've covered, from studio access being restricted to legal teams gathering evidence, from social media strategies to career-ending consequences. This situation has exposed the real mechanics of how the music industry operates when someone with serious influence takes a stand. What's particularly important to understand is that this isn't going to be an isolated incident. The precedents being set here will affect how artists interact, how studios operate, and how the industry handles conflicts for years to come. When someone like Travis Barker creates a new playbook for handling industry disputes, people pay attention. The way different players in the industry are choosing sides tells us everything about where real power lies. It's not just about hit records or social media followers anymore. It's about who has the connections and influence to actually make or break careers. Before we wrap this up, drop a comment below with your thoughts on this situation. How do you think this will affect future collaborations in the industry? Do you think Travis's involvement will lead to positive changes? Or is this the beginning of an even more controlled music industry? If you're finding these deep dives valuable, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We're going to keep exploring these industry-changing situations because understanding them helps us all navigate the entertainment world better. Remember, in an industry built on relationships and influence, sometimes the most important moves happen behind the scenes. The real power isn't always in what's said publicly, it's in who has the ability to make things happen or stop them from happening. Stay informed, stay strategic, and I'll catch you in the next video.